People were like creating medical devices and literally changing the world. And then they were like, oh, and what do you do? And we're like, oh, we have a pickle company.
This is Leah and this is Yasaman, the co-founders of the viral hot girl pickles going crazy on TikTok right now.
It's the perfect pickle.
We're about to put them through 3 levels of the internet's most searched questions about business, starting with easy and ending with hard. The questions that everyone is dying to know, but are way too afraid to ask.
I'm scared.
Welcome to the hot seat.
So Yasaman and I have been best friends for the last 7 years. When we went out to get our first jobs out of college, we kind of felt very unfulfilled with our like corporate situations. And so we started scrolling on the job. So we started noticing a trend around pickles. Like every other video was a pickle related video. And we were coming home after work and like smashing a jar of pickles as well. Started doing our due diligence. There was 9.5 billion views on the hashtag pickle and pickles combined on TikTok. And then we looked at the aisle. There was no flavor innovation, no packaging innovation. No one was organic. So we were like, okay, there's definitely something here. So we ended up quitting our jobs summer of 2023.
Go, hey, more passion, more passion.
Went viral before we launched February 2024. Minutes. Someone already ordered it. And kind of has been a sprint ever since. We just launched in Erewhon in January, Bristol Farms. We have a couple really big retailers we're about to be in. We're coming out with 2 new flavors and a new format for the pickle product. So, yeah.
What do entrepreneurs actually do all day?
I feel like you're just putting out fires all day, honestly.
This is complete torture, and I don't know what I did to somebody to make me sit here and do this.
So I do all of the marketing side of things and brand facing things. I'm on meetings all day long. And so I tried to structure out my days with when am I going to do my personal work and when am I going to tackle these 1,000 meetings.
Do entrepreneurs work 9 to 5 / get weekends off?
No.
I
Short
think it
answer.
depends on the person, but like I think your schedule also is so different every day, especially when you're starting out, because it might be that at 3 p.m. like no one's answering you because you're in LA and everyone's in New York and the day's done and it's Friday. And so you're just like, okay, is my day over? Like no one's answering my emails. Or there might be days where you're working until like 10 p.m. trying to figure something out.
Also, when you have your own company, it just is your life. And so for me, answering 10 emails on a Saturday is not, it's kind of like scrolling on Instagram.
Do entrepreneurs get paid a salary?
Usually you don't have a salary until you've raised at least a seed round, just because the business is priority and you want to make sure the business is successful, and that doesn't really involve you. There's so many side hustles you can do to, you know, keep your personal self alive. But yeah, until you have a good funding situation, you can't really pay yourself, unfortunately.
How do entrepreneurs find ideas?
I don't know. I kind of feel like a lot of us just solve a problem that we see in our own personal lives.
I think it's kind of a, if you know, you know. When you have a gut feeling about having a business idea, you just kind of know that you have to do it, and it'll keep you up at night and eat at you if you don't do it. And I think that's kind of the feeling that we had with this. And it was kind of like, if we're not doing it, then someone else is going to do it.
I feel like I'm like on Hot Ones or something.
I know.
What's the biggest myth about being an entrepreneur?
I think people think you're just rich if you're a CEO or a founder and you have so much money to spend, which is just not true.
I think people romanticize it a lot because they're like, oh, it must be so nice to like work for yourself. And obviously it does come with a lot of perks. Like you don't have, you know, pressure coming from somebody else, but there's always like other types of pressures.
No one talks about on a random Tuesday, you'll wake up as a founder and like you'll have one meeting and that's it, like for the rest of the day, just because you had a slow day, like, and you're just starting a company and things aren't super busy yet. And then you feel so guilty because you're like, shit, I quit my job and now the rest of my Tuesday, like I have nothing to do, and like you just spiral and spiral and spiral.
And sometimes it's hard to figure out kind of like your KPIs and kind of like measure how well you're doing because you're not really...
There's no adult in the room.
Yeah, there's no... Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Also, I feel like there's this idea that, you know, you're sleeping in the office and you never have a second to yourself, and...
I was just working, so 7 days a week, sleeping in the factory.
Everything is work all the time, but I've actually had so much more free time, and maybe it's just because I'm structuring my own schedule, but to do the things that I want to do, and, you know, to have the time to go on a 30-minute walk in the middle of the day, or, you know, if I want to like have lunch with my mom, I can do that. You know what I mean?
What are some of like the biggest mistakes you guys have made so far?
So we hired our first intern last summer. She was great. She was helping on the marketing side of things. And so she obviously had the logins to to our social media accounts. Love you, Sam. And she had a night one night and had a lot of fun and accidentally posted a drunk selfie for like 15,000 people to see, and we didn't know until hours later. So we learned not to give the logins to others. And there's a typo on the jar still to this day.
There's a few actually. Honestly, it's kind of embarrassing.
And we found this out when we were at a lunch with a potential investor, and he's the one that pointed it out. And so it was honestly really bad. We didn't really know how to react, but you know, it happens.
Yeah.
It's always my fault. I accidentally messed up the dates for a David Dobrik event and had to get 170 jars to David Dobrik's house within 30 minutes. He lives 45 minutes from us. It was a disaster, but made it happen. Things are just bound to go wrong. But sharing those dumb things and mistakes online is really fun for us, and not a lot of people do that, especially founders, because they want to look legit and they want to look professional. But we found that sharing those things on social media actually humanizes us and makes people want to follow along, because we're just being really authentic about the journey and real too.
What was like the reaction from your friends and family when you decided to come out and say, we're quitting our jobs, we're starting this pickle company?
I feel like friends were super supportive, and they were like, oh my God, yes, do it. That's so funny. And I don't know if they were just kind of like more entertained by the idea, and they were just like, let's just see where these girls take this. For me, family-wise, I feel like there were some question marks of kind of like, are you sure, really?
Things people actually said to us when we told them we're starting a pickle company. I don't even know one person who buys pickles. Here's two.
I actually remember when I told my parents, like I was literally on GoDaddy.com and I was buying goodgirlsnacks.com, and I just shouted, I was in my parents' house and I shouted, I'm starting a pickle company with Yasaman. Have I told you the story?
Yeah, I remember. Actually.
And my dad was like, what? What do you mean? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then we ended up making a whole presentation and, you know, being like, okay, we're gonna quit our jobs. This is the plan. And it was kind of like when you were a kid, when I would try to convince my parents to like get a dog or something, I would make a presentation and I felt like I was doing the same thing.
How do young entrepreneurs like yourselves get people to take them seriously?
I think it's hard, especially being both young and women. When we first started out, we were actually talking to a lot of men in the business, and it was very intimidating, and they just talk to you like you don't know anything at all, which, you know, was partially true at the beginning. But, you know, we still find ourselves in conversations with people, and they're like explaining things to us as if we were like toddlers, and we're like, okay, like, you know, sure, we're new to this business, but at this point we kind of know how things work.
Yeah, and now we also kind of put them in their place. We're like, hey, like, we've been doing this for a while now, like, you don't have to talk to us like this.
Yeah.
Or just like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is entrepreneurship lonely?
Yes.
Yeah, it for sure can be.
You are running in your own race almost, and there's no one really there to cheer you on unless you make sure that those people are there. And you make your own goals, you have the idea, you have to be so responsible for yourself to make sure that you're successful and that your business is successful, that it's almost all you think about, and then you end up in this like cloud of just work. And I think being stuck in that can be very lonely sometimes. If you can find a partner, it's better, because one, you'll be more efficient, and two, you have someone to lean on. Totally create a fund.
Yeah, create a fund, give back in some way, support other founders.
I think having a fund is so fun because you still get to be in the entrepreneurial world and supporting entrepreneurs while not directly being in the day-to-day. And so, and also by that point, hopefully one day we'll get there, we'll also have had the experience of being an entrepreneur. And so we'll be able to take someone's hand and be like, this is how we would do it. Or have the connections and networks to connect people to the right people to make sure that their business is successful. If you can sell your product to me in 2 minutes, and I'm convinced, like, I've met so many people where I just have a gut feeling about them, even if they're not selling a product or a business to me, but they're like just talking about themselves. I'm just like, you're hired, or like, I love what you're working on. There's some times where I have meetings with people and I'm like, if I had the money to like invest in your business, I would do it right now. And it's just the way that they speak with like such confidence and passion, and they just believe in what they're doing so much. I think that's very easy to spot very early on.
Have you ever felt imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with it?
Big time. I feel like I felt that when we were invited to the Forbes Under 30 event, and everyone, we're like, mingling and meeting other people, and we're like, oh my God, like, what do you do? Like, what got you this insane like nomination? And people were like creating like medical devices and literally changing the world. And then they were like, oh, and what do you do? And we're like, oh, we have a pickle company. And it just felt so silly in the moment. And we were like, oh my God, this is so dumb. I feel like to some extent, I'll always have a bit of like imposter syndrome because I'm so in my day-to-day of doing my work that when someone either like comes up to us or comments or DMs or tells us that they love the brand and I don't know, they drove like X amount of hours to buy our product. When things like that happen, like when we have those sorts of interactions, it always feels like, wait, what? Like really? Like my brand?
Yeah.
It feels so like, I don't know.
What are those things that keep you up at night?
Production. Manufacturing is so out of your hands because it's someone else doing it. It's so important to have a great partner for that reason, but I always get really nervous that things aren't going to happen on time, or because they don't, or something's going to go wrong in that sense because they do. And it's so out of our control, and not being in control of such a vital part of the business is really scary. But you figure it out, and like everyone in this industry figures it out in due time, but it's always in the back of my mind. And we share that stress.
Yeah.
A lot.
Anything about entrepreneurship that nobody warned you about?
How expensive it is. Like, you think of what it costs to get a product into a store, let alone, a nationwide chain, and all the fees that go into it, from, logistics, like getting the product physically in those stores, to, slotting fees and all those charges from distributors, and marketing the product, ads, if you do run ads, especially when you're trying to operate on a big scale. Like, it takes a lot of money to make money. And that's kind of what we're realizing.
Yeah, or like how long it's gonna take us to actually make money as a business.
Yeah.
You also have to be okay with failure. And I feel like a lot of people we spoke to didn't really emphasize that part of it, where you can be going like this with your business and then suddenly something happens and, you go to zero, or you have to close a business, or you have to completely change your business strategy or your product or whatever. That hasn't happened to us, obviously, but, if that were to happen, we have to be okay with that being a risk. Say yes and figure it out.
Yeah, like make the most out of that 50K, and you can make anything work. I think if you try and be scrappy, like there's no like, oh, unless you have 500K, you can't do anything. Like, no, I think you can make anything work with, even if you had, I don't know, like $10,000, you could probably figure something out.
So whether it's about money or anything else, you just kind of take what you got and run with it.
Yeah.
Bye.